You're looking for her? They keep whining and dining on us.
Are we up? Everett.
Sounds like you got a sister.
All right. Can you hear me now? All right, good. I want you to know that those pictures that are on the screen are all the same people. It's all the same folks, so it just happens to be one in 1969, one in 1985, and one just about a year and a half ago.
2 years, 3 years.
So, I've got to answer the first question. Is it going to rain in February? It's a little tight. The next system coming in Tuesday will just drop temperatures down into the 50s, so it's going to be a big change. And then another system comes in on the 22nd. There may be a chance of a shower or two with that one, but if it goes inland, nothing. And I think the next chance that comes is about March 9th. So I mean, significantly dry. Just make sure you save water if you can. We're going to start out, we want to have a little fun with this, but we want you to kind of know where we have come from and what we've done. Jean's father was a dentist.
I'll stay. I just am looking for something. I grew up in a Christian home. My dad was a dentist.
Have we got her mic?
Microphone.
Yeah. You're good.
You can hear me? You can hear me.
I can hear you fine.
Okay. Well, my father was a dentist. And we are equity.
You can sit down.
And my mother was a nurse. And my dad did the World War II, Korean War, all that stuff. I am too loud. Okay. I'm looking for something I have to have. So I grew up in a Christian home and Lutheran. And
I'm gonna say
Dolores.
Hold on, Dolores. Have a seat.
Okay, so I grew up in a Christian home. And we went to church every Sunday. And when Billy Graham did his crusades in San Francisco, my dad and mom went for the 7 weeks because they were counselors. My dad even did Billy Graham's teeth. That's what my father did. Missionary's teeth, did all our his pastor's teeth. Billy Graham was in town, he had a little problem, had to hit his teeth, and always for free, of course. And we had lots of missionaries through the home, and so, you know, that was really an important part of my upbringing. Was hospitality and giving and being kind and, you know, all the good Christian attributes. And so I was about 9 when I look at you. That's
don't go back any further.
that would not be unusual, as you know. So, well, I gave my heart to the Lord at a Billy Graham crusade when I was 9. And so the navigators had all the verses and everything to remember and or memorize rather. And so I had a good beginning in life as far as, you know, good, strong Christian background.
But a big event occurred with your father.
My father had a massive coronary when he was 40. I was in 8th grade. And he lived, but my mother, they had purchased another home. And so my mom moved us 4 kids into this home, not knowing whether my father would live or not.
Did we turn it off? Okay.
And so this was, hearing Mom's story of, I moved the 4 kids and, didn't know whether Bob was going to live or not. So that was deep in my conscience.
I don't either.
I grew up as a PK, a preacher's kid. My father was a Lutheran pastor, and my mother was a pianist, an organist, a choir director, and at one time she had 5 choirs.
And she also taught Bible study.
She also taught
She
Bible
was the
study.
women's Bible study.
My mother was, you get questions later.
Oh, I want to ask where this happened.
Woodland,
Okay, thank you.
Woodland, California.
And I was in San Leandro, California,
Born in San Francisco, right?
or in San Francisco.
I was born in Stockton, so we're both California natives. We grew up with I grew up with 2 siblings, and the high school was right next door, so I could sleep late. I played guitar, played in a rock band. It was called Little Emil and the Stone Throwers.
Yes, so little Emil was.
That's one reason Norm doesn't hear well today. We played a number of gigs locally when I was late high school, senior, and then in junior college, because we all kind of kept together. We were a garage band, basically. We played in the garage and practiced, and people from high school would come around and dance in the parking lot of the church. And
Parsonage, of course, he grew up in a parsonage.
as with Gene, traumatic events in our life were we were always out of cash. There was never enough money to buy shoes and sometimes clothes.
Or food.
So much so that when we bought a microwave for my folks, they put it on a roller and kept it in the closet so the patrons didn't see it.
Because the parsonage was their home. And after church, or while the family was away,
They just wandered through the house.
they just came in.
And so when I needed shoes, I didn't always get shoes, and there were some times when the church didn't have enough money to pay Dad. And so much of my life, money and security of money was an issue. Just as with Jeannie, every time we moved, she was afraid Norm was gonna die.
It was really
Really?
horrible. When we got engaged, I was sure he was gonna die before we got married. And then when I found out we were going to Japan to live, I thought, well, I could get over there, but then he was gonna die over there. And then how would I, and then what? And it was a reoccurring nightmare. It was really quite serious.
It was embedded in your brain, right?
And I didn't, of course, know where it really came from at first.
All right, I'm losing my hair to make ugly people look better. Hashtag giving back. We're gonna have some fun with this. Another one. Wear glasses to math class. It improves division. All right, we met at Mount Cross Lutheran Bible Camp. And that's over in Felton, California. It's just about 3 miles up Highway 9 from Felton.
I was 17, he was 18.
And we met on the 4th of July on a Sunday, and you can go back and check it, but it was a Sunday in 1965. We dated some during the summer.
I would say we went together during the summer.
And my mom came, well, here's how it worked. Jean saw me, and she saw the number of guys that were there, and her mother was a nurse, and she drove back home to San Leandro and packed.
You came back for the
for the week.
fraternize with the staff because I was going to be a senior in high school.
And so that's how we met. We took a young kid who had broken a leg down to well, at that time it wasn't called an urgent center, but it was a kind of a center where they helped out. And they patched him up, and we called his parents. And as we drove across the bridge in Belton, I stopped on the way back and I kissed her.
The rest is history.
Now, every time we go there and cross that bridge, we do the same thing.
You have to go there on purpose because it certainly is out of the way.
After that, we both went off to college.
Broke up.
Jean went up to Pacific Lutheran University, so we're embedded Lutherans here in Tacoma. And she graduated up there with a degree in literature, English literature and an education major. So there she was with Shakespeare and all that, and me, I had my head in the clouds.
I love to read. I did 17th century English poetry. You know, I liked, I did like the Beatles, but I was more Peter, Paul and Mary, the folk singers, the,
Beach Boys.
I said that, but anyway.
She went to those concerts. I went to the Rolling Stones and the Beach Boys. Okay.
Actually, the only concert I ever went to was Peter, Paul and Mary, and I went with my mother. So I got no concert experience.
So I graduated in '69 with a degree in meteorology, and the draft board was after me, and I got an offer from a recruiter in Fresno, and drove down there and signed up for a delayed enlistment. And I went in October of 1969 and was commissioned in December of 1969. I was standing on the PT field, physical field, and we were out there in our shorts and running around playing, and the captain came up to me and made me stand at attention. We were called officer trainees at the time, and he said, O.T. Hoffman, some people have all the luck. I said, why is that, sir?
Well, there was a little swearing between.
And I'm standing at attention. He says, because of where you're going. And this was about 3 days before we graduated. I was one of the last ones to get orders. I said, well, where am I going, sir? And he says, Yokota Air Force Base. And I went, where the hell is that?
Sir.
And he goes, yes, sir. And he goes, Tokyo. And I said, really? And he says, yes, you're going to Yokota, and that's a good assignment. And so I picked up the phone and called Jeannie, and she goes, let's get married right away.
Well, over Thanksgiving, even though Norman wasn't around, he was in Texas, I had picked out my wedding ring, and also my wedding gown. We weren't engaged, but we were going to be, you know. And so I had the ability. But then I remembered at all my growing up years, my father said, when you get married, everything is your husband's responsibility. You know, that you made the bed, you sleep in it kind of mentality. So we thought about it, but then we knew that Norman couldn't pay for my education last semester at PLU, so here we are. We didn't get married.
Jean and I were engaged then, and I went off to Japan.
So the 6 months we were engaged, I planned a wedding.
I had nothing to do with it. Colors, everything. She took care of it, plus had a shower with my folks, and I think one with your mother too.
Yeah.
The picture is my father co-officiated along with the pastor at the Oakland Lutheran Church, and
Our Savior's Lutheran.
that's what on July 4th, and we had a wedding and a reception at Jean's house.
We had 2 receptions.
The
We had
beautiful
one
woman in the
for
stud,
people
the
that
brown
church.
bars, first, second lieutenant you see on the right. No, that's not Tom Cruise, that's me. Okay?
Or Ricky Nelson.
We moved to Japan on July 17th. We had a 2-year, about 2-week honeymoon, but we considered it 3 years because we just had a good time in Japan.
Had a baby at the end.
Had a baby out there as well. We lived at Yokota from July 70 to May 30th, 1973. And there's a couple pictures up there. There's 4 of them. I'll start top left. We bought stereo equipment and we bought it for people and sent them home. We must have sent, well, I sent my father first. I sent him a stereo because he just didn't have one. And the top right is when we lived off base, and that stove you see there was an oil stove. And
That was the source of heat for the house.
one time we got it fired up so much it danced.
A little dangerous, a little dangerous.
And the other time, in the winter time, when it was cold in the 20s or teens outside, I had to go outside and pour hot water on the pipes just to get the oil running, to get it into the house. We were newly married and we slept in sweats.
Sweats, hoodies,
We slept
electric
in sweats. It was
blanket,
cold.
comforter.
Down the bottom right is Jean with Sean. And the bottom left is I went to work one night and I came home in the morning and Jean kind of asked, well, how'd it go? I says, well, there's 2 inches of partly cloudy on the ground. There were a few busted forecasts, but that was one of them. Jean worked as a substitute teacher and she taught English as a second language at the Honda factory up north of where we were at Yokota.
Well, I taught in the American schools. And at that time, if the kids messed up, I mean, serious infraction, maybe chewing gum or talking or whatever, the mother and the children would be sent home and the father had to finish his tour alone. So there wasn't any problems. But I was 22 and you saw the length of my skirts. I had little shorts that I made that were out of the same fabric, but they were short. And the teachers thought I was a student. So it was, it was very interesting. I really enjoyed it. Except I was about 8 months pregnant teaching boys PE. And with your first baby, I was scared to death. I didn't know whether something would happen right there, right now. But we had fun.
Sean was, let's see what I got here. Don't mean to push all your buttons, honey, but I was just trying to hit mute. We came home and I filled out all the forms for the federal government, and we separated from the military at that time, kind of took an early out, and when we got
took
home...
it early out because Norman didn't want people telling him how to wear his hair or where to live.
And how many times she had to move.
We just didn't want it, we wanted stability,
But anyway, I filled out the form, and on the form it says, where do you not want to go? And I said, Washington, D.C. So we got a job offer on July 1st in Washington, D.C. with the National Environmental Satellite Service, and we had just been gone for 3 years. And the parents kind of didn't want us to go, but it was either that or go back to work in a gas station. So we took the job and accepted the job the next week. We prayed about it.
And we're thankful for it.
We talked a lot about it while we were there, and we had a young boy. And what you see on the right is the family saying goodbye to us as we left on August 1st. All right, I was scheduled for, we were in Washington D.C. and we lived in an apartment. And as time went on, we said, well,
Annandale? Was it Annandale, Virginia?
Now, I was making $10,000 a year as a captain in the military at that time. Oh, I have to say, before I go on, while we were in Yokota, I have the menu from the Yokota Top 5 Club catering service
Do
from
the
1971. And an Italian sausage pizza was $1.10.
The whole pizza.
If you want a cheeseburger large, it was 80 cents. And if you want a top 5 steak with French fries, it was 80 cents. We used to go, I went in, before Jeannie came over, I went into the Stag Bar in the evening to eat because I was just in the officers' quarters and I didn't have any way to really cook.
That's for sure.
But I did have a small fridge and a hot plate.
And a salt and pepper shaker.
But we used to go into the officers' quarters, and for 75 cents you could get a full meal, salad, soup, and a meal. And then it was happy hour, so for nickel beer, so for $1, you could have 5 beers and you could get a meal. And then if some crazy captain came in or pilot came in and pulled the bell, you had to buy everybody a drink. So it was usually more than that if I was there. But anyway, I have a copy of that.
That
All
is
right.
really fun to look at. It'll
So we're back to California. We moved back from Virginia to Redwood City. I went to work for the satellite service in Redwood City in 1975. We lived in a rented townhouse
Foster City.
in Foster City, and we attended Hope Lutheran Church. We're still sticking to the Lutherans. It was close to our families. We lived in Foster City, and San Leandro was right across the bridge, and my folks lived up in Woodland.
Yeah, it was 30 minutes. It was close.
We finally purchased a new home. Jean had, her father
Oh, that's
had
our
a friend.
second home, honey. We bought one in Foster City. No, in Falls Church.
We
Virginia.
bought a house in Falls Church.
That's
Yeah,
right, we forgot.
we moved from the apartment to a new home in Falls Church, Virginia. So we're moving to Yokota, off base to on base, from Yokota back to Oakland, and then off to Washington D.C. in an apartment, then into a house. And we were in that house for 3 months when I got a job in Redwood City. So we turned around and sold it.
And made money.
So we rented a townhome in Foster City and went to Hope Lutheran. And then a friend of Jean's father's, Jerry, came up and told us that if you don't move now, you're not
Don't buy a home right
buy a
now.
home right now, you're not going to be able to, because he was in real estate. And home prices were going up like $1,000 to $2,000 a month more than this, but when you're only making $12,000 or so a year, it makes a difference. So we bought a house in San Jose. We bought one of the first ones in the development, and by the time they sold the last one, it went from $49,900 to $54,000, and that was 3 weeks. They were going up that fast.
What year was that?
1977.
Our second boy, Brian, was 2.
Oh, did I hit the wrong button? Everett, help me out. Okay. We lived in San Jose until 1988. We attended Emmanuel Lutheran Church, and we went through the Bible in a year. We were in charge of Sunday school, and I was on the church council.
We also taught catechism. So we also took about 50 kids. There were not 50 kids in catechism, let me tell you. We took 50 kids skiing.
No, that was Arizona.
Have we moved already?
No, we haven't gone to Arizona.
Oh, well, excuse me.
Okay, so we're moving twice,
We did
Foster
teach.
City to San Jose.
We did teach Sunday school though in,
Jean worked with Vietnamese resettlement and English as a second language, and she helped This was when Vietnam, and we bailed out of Vietnam, and all of the Vietnamese came back, the boat people, and she started helping them with English and English as a second language. She did it all as a volunteer.
I had my children's books, you know, these great big picture books, and where you could go, this is a bear, this is a mom pooping, this is what this is called. And I just sat down and talked with my friend, and her children played with mine, and she really caught on. And of course, I was there to correct her, which is kind of hard sometimes when people don't speak English well, to catch them on it. But in Vietnamese, they do not do J's well. So I was Zine, Z-E-A-N.
Or ours. In the federal government, I had to bid on positions. So you bid with other people on positions. So I bid on a job in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, I know I love forecasting weather, but at the time I was working rotating shifts. And rotating shifts, people used to ask me, they say, well, what's that like? I said, it's like working 6 days in San Francisco, get 2 days off. You work 6 days in London, England, get 2 days off. You work 6 days in Tokyo, you get 2 days off, and you come back and do the same thing.
So when he was supposed to be sleeping during the daytime, and we had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, keeping things quiet, we only had one car, Brian got out of my sight, walked down to the bedroom, and peeled his dad's eyes out. Are you awake, Dad? It was hard to have good humor during those years. It was
So I
really
know
hard.
Gene wanted to work a little bit, but the family with the rotating shifts was really difficult.
We decided we could have a better house, but we wouldn't have a better home. And it was important to me to be there with the children. And I did have a teaching degree.
I have little Bible passages in the top right. I hope you can see that. Pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances. That was one of the hardest things. That was a hard thing on the family. We'll get through that.
But we
in a
really
little
prayed
bit.
about my staying
So
home.
we prayed about moving to Phoenix because it meant me going into management. But I got the job anyway. And we purchased another house in Mesa, move number 8.
Oh,
I worked in the NWS National Weather Service office at Sky Harbor Airport.
you took my back.
We attended Spirit of Joy.
Thank you.
Spirit of Joy Lutheran Church. Sean was confirmed there. And again, we worked with the pastor in confirmation.
And that's when we took the kids skiing.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. That's the next slide. And we both sang in the choir. So we've been participating and helping in church activities all the way down through our life. This was a tough job. We took youth in large groups on ski trips to the White Mountains. And man, I cooked breakfast. And so I was up early. We would go up on a Friday, ski on Saturday, have church Sunday morning, and drive back home. And there was a camp, but
I was in charge of getting all these kids to get their skis before we left. And we told the parents to rent ski clothes.
and we took 5 groups over 5 years to the White Mountains to go skiing. And there wasn't one time that 1 or 2 girls
Mostly.
came in shorts and a t-shirt. Wasn't once. After a couple of times, we were bringing clothes with us to help put clothes on those kids. Some of
After
them,
they came down the mountain, you know, they went to the top. They couldn't ski. They weren't dressed right. And they'd come down to have food, because we would barbecue it.
We barbecue food.
And, we would put some clothes on them, kind of dry them out, you know.
Or it's cold, you know, these teenage girls. We just go, yes, we told your parents. We finally had to call them all, and some parents had never been skiing, so they didn't know, or they'd never been to the mountains.
Or ever thought of
They
it.
were only used to Phoenix weather. Crazy.
How many kids in each group?
But we took 50 at a time.
Oh, my.
We got a bus. There were 40 and 50 kids at a time. We took
And
up
we
the-
had helpers, like den mothers or whatever, for each, about 8, I suppose.
The kids grew up faster. And we
Our
had-
boys did.
Jeannie said, when we go to Phoenix, we're not going anywhere without a pool. I said, okay. So each one of these major moves were a promotion. Generally, we moved for a promotion so that we would get
More money.
more money. We ended up, because money was always an issue for me. Am I gonna make enough? Is Gene gonna be all right if I don't make it? All that kind of stuff. And we finally figured out in Arizona that it doesn't matter how much you get promoted, you're still broke at another level. Period.
And so we had to learn to manage.
Manage it, yeah. I got my master's degree in 1988, and master's degree was in Arts of Management from the University of Phoenix. The National Weather Service paid for that, and they gave me Wednesday off, but I still worked 40 hours a week, so I don't know how that works, but
Plus
I
school,
did.
writing papers. 2 boys.
To the thief who took my antidepressants, I hope you're happy. 86 son was confirmed. He's the one on the right.
He's our son
we're
that
up by the
died
pool.
at
The
42.
white thing back there is a weather station. I've always had a weather station in the backyard, at least from Arizona on. And we were proud of Sean that he accepted Christ. I got my master's degree there. And then I was finally selected for the area manager job.
No. The area manager job in California opened up. And Norman said he wouldn't take it. We didn't
Well,
want to move.
what I didn't do is bid on the job.
You didn't bid on the job. So the bidding closed, and then he got a call from his boss who said, you will bid on that job. And so it was like, what's his name, going to Nineveh? Jonah, going to Nineveh. We just fought that because his salary was exactly the same as what it was in Arizona. And California at that time, I mean, we were living in a under $100,000 home. And they, junky looking homes along the freeway were $400,000. And so here we are, same salary, living
Well, one of the problems was
in San
that
Carlos.
when the boss said in Salt Lake City, he said, I'm gonna put out another job offer and I want you to bid on it. I said, okay. So he puts the job offer out, and on the vacancy announcement, it says, this office may be moving to Monterey.
Oh, gee.
Now, if you're an employee in the office in Redwood City with a family and established,
And a house.
that's the first time they heard that the office would be moving to Monterey. So when I finally got to Redwood City, I was already behind the 8 ball.
You're not gonna move the office. Norm.
I had 4 people the first day in the office and said, you're not really gonna move the office, are you? And I said, it's already been signed off at the NOAA level, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has signed off on it. Yes, I'm gonna move it. And they stood up, walked out of my office and said, we're gonna bury you, but they used some other words.
And they did everything
So
they
for
could.
the next 3 years, it was a fight. But at the same time, I was also tasked with closing 4 other offices in California: Bakersfield, Stockton, Redding, and Santa Maria.
He was real popular.
I was a real popular guy, at least with the media. And I was back and forth quite a bit. And in the first year, I put 35,000 miles on a federal vehicle, driving around and working with agencies. And the boss came to me and said, "You're putting too many miles on the car." And I said, "You are signing my orders, sir." And he says, "Well, we've got to cut back on that." So when I had a problem in which the employees at Stockton were telling the FAA we're moving out and we're not going to be able to support you,
Your planes are
I
gonna
heard
fall.
about it. I grabbed my deputy, and he's a pilot, and I said, "I'll pay for it. Let's go over there." So we went over there, landed, dealt with the problem, and flew back. And it was a Friday afternoon, and so I didn't want to fight the traffic. We got back. I paid him cash out of my pocket. On Monday, I get a call from my boss, and he says, "What are you guys doing flying over to Stockton?" And I said, "This is what we did." I told him what we dealt with, and he said, "Yeah, but why are you flying together?" I said, "Because Roger is a pilot." And he says, "The president and the vice president don't fly together." He says, "I don't want you flying over there together like that. I
Okay.
want Roger to stay back and you fly over." I said, "I'm not a pilot." Anyway, those kinds of things we had to deal with. The biggest office closure was Redding, because it was a fire weather center for Northern California. And I had a good college friend up there who
Worked
was
there.
fighting the whole thing as well along the way. The other hard thing was Gene stayed in Mesa for the first 9 months because we wanted Brian to
Sean to graduate.
finish
and
school.
Sell the house.
And so trying to sell the house. So I lived with Gene's mom and her sister
For 9 months.
in San Leandro for 9 months and commuted from there.
My mom's a sweetheart, but my sister was a challenge.
And I tried to fly home every other weekend. And this was a tearjerker for Jean. If you think back to her conversation about her father almost dying when they moved, and we're trying to move to San Francisco,
And the closet
Bay
was
Area,
empty.
and Jean
He wasn't around.
has to stay home with the kids and had to run the whole family, basically. So I'd get home on a Friday night, and I'd fly back on Sunday afternoon, and she would find herself in the bedroom crying.
And I tried to keep it from the children. I'm not as Brian, if you remember. But I'd say hi to them, and then I'd go to the bedroom. I'm gonna take a nap, shut the doors. And I was just devastated. I just cried for 2 hours. Then put on your happy face and go out and live the rest of the week or two.
We lived in temporary housing after that for 2.5 months in, where were we, San Carlos?
That was the house, but it was,
Hayward, no, yeah. And
Redwood
so when
City or
we
something.
when we left Phoenix after Sean graduated, we had to pack twice. We had to pack for what would be stored and put in our house, and we had to pack for what we'd live in, because our house that we purchased had asbestos in it, and they were cleaning it. They were taking it all out. We purchased half a house. I had looked for houses after I got off of work, and there were $250,000 homes in which the bedrooms weren't painted and the fences were falling down. And so Ruth poked me, Jean's mom, poked me and said, "Put in a prayer request and be specific."
it was a covenant, it was a covenant church, and they had
I want a 4-bedroom house
Her
within
listing.
5 miles of Redwood City, and I'd like to have it at least available soon. 2 weeks later, there's a call on her phone. "I know somebody who's got a house for sale in San Carlos." I said, okay,
No way we can afford
His
that.
name's Rudy Helene, this is his number. So I go over there, meet Rudy, I called him up, set up an appointment, I go over and meet him, and it's a beautiful house, it's a tree house, basically, but it does have 30 steps going up into the main floor, there's a bedroom and bathroom downstairs, and finally I said, this is a really nice place, what's it gonna cost me? And he pops it out and gave me the sheet, and it was $420,000, and I went, Rudy, I'm sorry, man, I don't make enough money to do this.
Didn't we tell you this? Did we?
I said, this can't be done. He says, oh, yes, it can, no problem. He says, we'll have, the lady who owns the house will own half of it, and you'll own the other half. You're gonna have to pay taxes and insurance, and you do an equity share.
And she moved to Iowa or something, so.
So we had to take out a
We didn't live
loan
with her or anything.
for half of the house, and if the house price goes up, we share it. If it goes down, we pay it. You know? So we lived there for 3 years, and of course the office was a buzz because according to the contractual agreements, I had to be out of there in 5. But that was a godsend. That was
Absolute
really
miracle.
a godsend, intervention right there. And we were stretched thin, but we were able to make it. Brian went to high school there, and Sean went to college a little bit, and then started his work career. We jumped ship, First Covenant Church in San Carlos,
No, Redwood City.
okay? I have on the screen San Carlos, you've looked at
I
these
missed that, I'm
screens, yeah,
sorry, I know
okay.
Redwood City.
Anyway, okay, Redwood City, and we attended there, I sang in the worship team, Gene worked in the office for a while.
Right, there was an after-school program that they were putting together, and so I was the person in the office that kept track of about 100 kids, or more. They sent buses out to the schools to pick up the kids, and then they'd come, and it was a huge campus. There was a swimming pool, and gymnasium, and just miles of grass. It was really a beautiful, beautiful location.
And she also went to Bible Study Fellowship. You made some good friends.
Yes, well, I started Bible Study Fellowship while I was still in Arizona. And that is, I think, the only thing that saved me while Norman was gone. Now, of course, it wasn't Bible Study Fellowship, it was God himself.
So I was still doing a lot of traveling as we were dealing with office closures.
He had
changing
friends
the-
wherever he went. Meteorology is a very small field. And so he was only a short, phone call away from all his buddies. But when I moved, I knew nobody. And
But
that was
my
hard.
wife is just like her mother. She can make friends with a fire hydrant. Right?
Right?
Right. Okay. I sang on
I
the
do
worship
much
team,
better one-on-one than in a group, but
and we up and moved to Monterey when we finally got the office. Since I have a little bit of time yet, I'll tell you a real quick story. It was so demanding from the employees that one day, some people from the Office of Inspector General arrived down here in Monterey and told all the workers to go home, and they were going to close down the project. And we were on the Navy facility, the Fleet Numerical Center, and the place was being built. And one of the employees called me and said, Norm, they're shutting down construction. I said, who is? He said, people from the Office of Inspector General. I said, that's not supposed to happen. And he says, yes, it is. It's happening, and they've told us to go outside the building. I said, wait there. I drove from Redwood City in a government vehicle to Monterey in 85 minutes. 140 miles. I pull in, at the time I was driving down the road, I called Captain Plant. I said, there's a bunch of guys kicking all the workers off the site. I got down there, I walked in, I asked him what was happening, what was going on, And Captain Plank comes, he says, you call me when you get to the gate. So I had the gate guard call. I walk over there, I walk in, and Captain Plank walks in with a 45 on his hip. He says, you're on my naval base. And he says, you have no chance of being here. And
No
he
right
said,
to be there,
he
yeah.
said, get the heck off. And he said, if you don't, I'll pull a gun. And they walked out. And they got the workers back to work. But that's what the employees had gone to so far to try and stop the move from happening, because some of them didn't want to move.
And some
There
of
was a
them
lot of
didn't.
process in there that went on, but the Lord's hand was all in this. The other big story was I had to come down and meet with the Monterey County Water Board. And we sat across, we had been in negotiations with them for a while, and I sat across the table, and one of the guys showed us a check from the Army that they had paid $250,000 for access to water. And I said, we're not gonna pay that. And so he says, well, what are you willing to pay? And I said, well, let's talk about it. So we went around and we stepped out of the room, we talked a little bit, and I said, what is the most the federal government will pay without really cringing? He said, it will pay $25,000 to access your water from Monterey. I said, you are aware we're already hooked to the Navy water? He says, yes, but this will fly under the radar. I said, okay. I walked back in and I said, we're gonna offer you $25,000. And the guy looked at me, he says, what do you think this is? Let's make a deal. And I looked at him and I said, you're darn sure it is. And you either take the $25,000 or we're hooked to the Navy water. It doesn't make any difference. So they went out and talked. They came back and said, we will accept the $25,000. The federal government FedExed them the $25,000 one day before the deadline.
Wow.
The processes and many things we had to go through to make it work. So I did a lot of traveling. We moved, of course, to Monterey. Huge fight at the local seafood dinner, battered fish everywhere. All right, you see me on the right? One of the ways I have been able to cope with all of this is exercise and weightlifting. If I wouldn't have done that, I don't believe there's any way I would have coped with all of what happened.
Well, of course, then, when we were in Trundle, my mom decided, looked like a pretty nice place to live, and she wanted to move in with us. And she had sold her big home in San Leandro Hills, and had moved into a double wide, immovable, whatever, home that happened to be right on top of our property. So she looked out her window and she saw our dogs, Dalmatians, running all over the place, and out our guest room bedroom, she saw this little house. I didn't even know it was there. So one time she drove out, she went up there, and it was for sale. And so she says, I'm gonna move right there. And then she lived there, we were trying to figure out how long, but 4 or 5 years. And then moved in with us for a couple of years.
Then one day we said, we need to upgrade the kitchen, and she said, I'd like to move in with you.
So our little kitchen plan grew into master bedroom suite for her.
So
And
Jeannie then worked for Wells Fargo, and
you keep interrupting me. Am I talking too much?
I'm trying to move us along.
All right.
The chicken is out.
Anyway, Norm was so good to my mom. He would make her laugh, and he called her names he called her the queen, because she wouldn't do anything to feed herself. We had to, we'd have food in our refrigerator, cranked open, and she wouldn't go and get it. So,
Queen Ruth.
he called her a queen, I was horrified. And she had
She loved it.
She had a dish towel in her hand, and oh, Norm, and he goes down on the floor, feet up like dead bug. And we all were just laughing. And I think that's how we got through most of this, is just to laugh at it. So you don't cry, you know what I mean?
Jeannie also worked for Wells Fargo Loan Department, and she worked for Struben Laporte, and she retired in 2010. Whenever I try to eat healthy, a chocolate bar looks at me and snickers. Now, what you see on the right-hand side are Dalmatians. In the top, they're born without spots.
So
They're actually born look like little rats, and then of course the spots after 2 weeks start to come out. We bred Dalmatians. We were not a puppy mill because we worked with a breeder, and all of the Dalmatians were sold before they were conceived.
People would put $50, we want to pick up the litter, here's $50.
Once they saw the mother, they said, we want her first pick of the litter or whatever they wanted. And so poor Classy, she had 10, 10, and 8. 3 litters of puppies, and out of each litter, there were probably 3 or 4 champions. And one of them was Foley, was our other dog. When we showed dogs during that time, I worked at the NWS and retired in 2002, long ago. I worked for KIO and KCBA 22 to 14, and I retired to be with Sean because he needed some help and he was dying. Norm worked for Compass Church. Actually, I've been here since 2017. I started in February, but Chris had me working before that. Norm has flunked retirement twice. So, stupidity knows no boundaries, but it knows a lot of people. That's what Gene
show your
says.
shirt.
That's what Gene says. I flunked retirement twice.
Stand up and show your shirt.
We've got Brian has married in August of '99. Sean was married in June of 2020. 4 grandchildren live right now in Plano, Texas. 2 grandchildren live in TDK, South Carolina with their mother.
Well, and the grandchildren live with our son in Plano.
Next slide.
Because his wife
All right,
left him.
we've had some tough things in our life. 12 moves in the first 25 years. That comes out to be every other year.
But we live sometimes long.
Yeah. My rotating shift work for 20 years was hard on the family, but Jeannie never realized what a meteorologist did. And of course, I didn't know anything about Shakespeare.
Well, and you didn't know anything about shift work, did you? Did you know you were getting into that?
Yeah, I knew that. The 9 months we were separated from Arizona to California. Our townhouse in Foster City, when we lived there, flooded. Like, was it a toilet or a bathtub? Toilet.
Went over.
And all the furniture, Ethan Allen wood furniture, was buried in water.
Right under the toilet. We didn't know that.
Yeah, it fell right down on the dining room table. Had to have it all refinished. Sean's 5-year battle with cancer and is finally healing in heaven in 2016. That was a rough one.
This was just a few weeks before he died.
Yeah, that was a few weeks there before he died.
He was in a lot of pain.
He was, on morphine like about every hour or so at that time. I was removed from the area manager job, and again, God was there. Because when they asked, I flew to Salt Lake, and we had a new boss, a new director of the Weather Service, and they asked me to step down. because the employees weren't happy. And remember, I'm the guy that got a master's degree, and my thesis is how to create an environment in which employees motivate themselves. 150 pages and graphs, and I had to get it cleared with the union. But I was taken out of the job because they felt I wasn't doing my job, but it was also because the employees were calling the director directly.
Oh, because you were moving the office too.
And I had moved the office and had so much trouble with it. Where am I, number 7? Bryce has been separated from his wife since 2020, and she's filed for divorce with 4 children. They keep each child once a week. For a week. When we started out with our expectations as a young couple, we never expected this. But we never expected that God would bring us through it. And He did.
Well, I think we knew God would bring us through our troubles, but we didn't know what our troubles would be. And I think without our strong background and tradition, I don't know, just our faith base, how much we love God, and how we had seen His miracles in the past.
Seen His hand in the things that we've done.
That got us through.
So we've seen God's hand in everything we've done. He has kept us together through all the times and a lot of prayers, and Jean's willingness to put up with me.
52 years this year.
He has been a comfort in our loss, and He's walked with us as we see His hand through our lives. And you all know this verse, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord.
Amen.
Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. And that's Jeremiah 29:11. Like my t-shirt.
Our son got it for me.
My son got it for me. So that's our story, and we're sticking to it.
If you have questions, I've got a lot more information about the times that Norm and I dated, and
Oh yeah, there was always
like
a story when there were 2 things when we were dating. What I called a double date was to come over from Woodland to San Leandro and take Jean out, and then at 9 o'clock drop her off, and then go take
I had a
another one
curfew.
out. Go take another one out afterwards. That was a double date.
And one Christmas,
And another time she said, "Where's Norm going?" Because I had left, and I said, "I gotta get back to Woodland. I got something going tomorrow." And I drive down the hill, and normally you turn right at the bottom of the hill, and I turned left. And she said, "I don't know what you were doing." And I said, "There was lightning all over the San Francisco area, and I just parked the car and watched it."
for probably an hour. Because I stood at the window going,
But you want to come with me and watch lightning?
"You."
So some crazy things, but we've had really a good life, and just
Your best
like
friend.
everybody else, you can probably relate to a lot of these things along the way, things that happen to you. But I hope you've enjoyed it. It's
Very
been a trip. And okay.
I don't know how to turn it off.
Yeah. I used to wear one of these when I thought I'd show you a video of being up in the, well, I'm gonna turn my camera off. I'm gonna YouTube video this. If it's still running, yes it is.